Hello and welcome to Spinster's Library. Well, welcome to Spinster's living room for a change. I'm Claudia and today I want to just tell you how my Victober has been going. For those of you who for some reason are unaware, Victober is a month-long readathon in October in which I and loads of other people read Victorian literature. And I feel like my Victober has been going quite well, which is strange because I've only actually finished one Victorian novel. But I really enjoyed that and I have started more. So let me just tell you about those today. The novel that I finished is called Gloriana or the Revolution of 1900 and it's by Lady Florence Dixie. And this was one of those obscure finds. This was actually my pick for Lucy the Reader's Challenge, who said to read a Victorian novel that's obscure but published in the same year as your favourite. And my favourite Victorian novel is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, which was published in 1890, as was Gloriana. And I really liked it. I mean, I don't want to give too much away now because there will be a longer review coming of this, but it's this strange mixture of a typical Victorian sensationalist novel with love and murder and power grabs and all of that kind of stuff. So on the one hand, it's got plenty of those. It's got plenty of really flat characters. It's got plenty of really trite moral lessons. But it's also then interwoven with this feminist utopian agenda of legal equality between men and women, which is obviously very far in the future if you are a Victorian. So it's a very strange mix of these two things. The story follows a girl called Gloria who manages to get into Eton by presenting as a boy, and then also managed to get herself elected into the House of Commons, where she tries to drive social change as her alias of Hector D'Estrange, very mysterious name. And Hector D'Estrange is universally loved. Everyone's really into his progressive social politics. Everyone except the villains of the story, of course. So that's where the adventure starts. It's such a fun and strange novel, but it's right up my street and I enjoyed it very much. Again, I will talk about this book in detail in a separate video, which I wasn't planning to do, but it's such a weird, quirky and wonderful novel that I have to talk about it in length. So that's the one Victorian novel that I have finished. I've also finished The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde, which was one of the two group reads. I haven't read the other Oscar Wilde group read yet, which is A Woman of No Importance, but I'm sure I will get through that in a day as well, because it's quite a short play. And I have read it before, so it shouldn't take me too long to get through that. But I'm really looking forward to reading that again, because while I vaguely remember the plot of it, a lot of the details are lost to me. I've read this play previously, and I have seen it on stage as a student performance at a German university. So I've also not actually seen this performed in the original language of English, because the performance, if I remember correctly, was translated. The book that I have started as of a few days ago is George Eliot's Silas Marner. And this is my first George Eliot, and I have only read the first 2 chapters so far. I'm not sure what to make of this. I do like the setup. So this seems to be the story of a man called Silas Marner, who is a weaver who has moved from a small town to a small village where he isn't really accepted into the community, which could also be due to these fits, mysterious fits that he's having, which I'm just assuming is some form of epilepsy, but it's not named as such. I'm not even sure if that was a term when George Eliot wrote the book. So the story hasn't really started yet at the point that I'm at in the novel. The second chapter ends on a bit of a cliffhanger, and let me read you the last sentence of this second chapter. But about the Christmas of that 15th year, a second great change came over Marner's life, and his history became blended in a singular manner with the life of his neighbours. So that, I guess, sets up the actual story that's about to start. So far, I am enjoying the novel. Obviously, the story hasn't quite started yet, but I'm also slightly nervous about it, and that's because I don't quite know how to feel about these kind of pastoral settings that, in my opinion, always tend to oversimplify village life and the working classes as simple people with simple desires and simple issues. I don't know if this is where that novel is going, or if it is rather a subversion of this stereotype. I'm just going to keep an open mind and continue reading and see where that takes me. This is quite a short novel, so I expect I'll finish that soon. But I have been reading it in chunks of one chapter at a time, because I feel like that's about the amount I can take in one go of George Eliot's writing style, which I find not the easiest, not the most welcoming to read. But this next book is possibly going to be the highlight or the complete lowlight, the complete failure of this Victober, and that is Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. And I'm very pleased that I found this copy in a charity shop. I say I found it, it was my guest spinster Robin who found it, and so I will be able to read this on paper rather than on Kindle, which is great. If you've seen my Victober TBR, then you might remember that this is the book I am going to reread this year. And the first time I read Wuthering Heights, I absolutely hated it. Really did not get on with it at all. When I said that in the TBR video, a lot of people commented saying, oh no, it's not a romance. You need to not read it as a romance, which I didn't. I tend to go into books without preconceptions, if possible. So it wasn't like I was expecting this to be the romance of the century and then was disappointed in that. I didn't expect this to be a romance or any other type of book. Some other people commented saying, oh, you were probably too young when you read that. You shouldn't read this as a teenager. But again, I was in my mid-20s when I read this, so I don't think that was a problem. I just genuinely did not like the book. But I know lots of people do, and that's why I'm willing to give it another go, and I am actually getting really excited about diving into this book. I will be filming my reaction as I read, so I can see that this book is split into chapters, so it will be really easy for me to read a chapter, record a quick reaction, read a chapter, record a quick reaction, and then edit those reactions together. This is a video format that I have done before. I read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier that way. I read The Hunger Games by Susan Collins that way as well. And I feel like there was another one. Oh, I read Lethal White by Robert Galbraith that way as well. And if I'm not mistaken, I did put these 3 videos together into a playlist, which I will link in the description box if you're interested in seeing how that format plays out. So I've had a bit of a crazy week so far, so I am going to start this, hopefully, tomorrow. I'll try and make some time for it because, well, I want to give this book the second chance it probably deserves, and I'm hoping that I'm wowed by it as much as a lot of other people seem to be. Although, I have to say, this does seem to be a love it or hate it kind of book. Most of the people who have given me their opinion on Wuthering Heights either love it or hate it. There doesn't seem to be much in between. And then, as I was wandering through the charity shop where I picked up Wuthering Heights, I also saw this on the same shelf. And this is Cranford by Elizabeth Gaskell. And here is another author who I feel deserves a second chance. Last year in Victober, I read North and South and absolutely did not enjoy it. And that slightly put me off her writing. But again, so many people whose opinion I value and whose reading taste I admire really enjoy Gaskell. So I'm going to give her another chance as well. Cranford, from what I've heard, is the story of a small country town with its various characters and goings-on, and that sounds quite interesting. And it's also a rather short book, this, edition has under 200 pages. So again, I'm hoping that I will be able to squeeze this in, even though it wasn't planned in my Victober TBR. So there's another one there. So strangely, again, even though I've only finished 2 works of Victorian fiction, which are Gloriana and The Importance of Being Earnest, and even though I have 4 or possibly even 5 more to go through, because I am also planning to read Agnes Grey at the end of the month, I am feeling quite positive about this. Now, I still really need to catch up on some Victober videos, because I've seen that so many people have been putting out so much Victober related content. I mean, Kate Howe has been on fire this month, and so hopefully I'll find some time to catch up on that as well. But yeah, quite happy with how things are going so far. Let me know how your Victober is going. Tell me if you have made any amazing discoveries, both in terms of books but also in terms of videos. Please don't put any links in the comments, because they will be flagged as spam by YouTube, and then I don't see them for 3 weeks or something like that. And yeah, I welcome your recommendations. Thank you for watching. Bye.